E360 TV proudly presents messages of inspirational stories. Live streaming now to millions of devices, including Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, with your host, Donna Guimwa, producer and host, Jim Grant, producer and host, along with Michaela Vidal, administrator and host, and Gaia Guimwa Balconi Wada, editor-in-chief.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Messages of Inspirational Stories. Today, it is all about women in leadership. We have Emerson with us, who is our marketing director. Emerson, welcome.
Oh, thanks. I'm so glad to be here today. This is an important topic to my heart.
Yes, well, it is to all of us. So, we have Tamara Hunter on, and we're going to bring her on in just a moment. Super excited. I've known Tamara for years. I've had her on my radio show. We'll go into her story in just a few, but right now would like to do our shout outs. Emerson, who would you like to give a shout out to?
Well, I'd like to give a shout out to Jim for all the love that he carries, and a shout out to you, Donna, for stepping in and saying, "Hey, man, we got this. Go take a rest." Yeah.
He needs a little break once in a while.
Yes,
he's awfully hard. I would love to shout out to everybody out there who is going through cancer. That is a difficult thing. I've come close to it, real close, too close for comfort, and escaped it by about that much. So, but I, have a series of cancer in my family. So shout out to everybody out there and all the people who support them, because that's super important. That is super important. So, okay. Well, I think without further ado, we're going to bring Tamara on because we have a lot to cover today.
Hello.
Tamara, welcome.
Well, thank you. And it's so great to be with both you and Donna and Emerson. Great to meet you. And I'm so happy that we had a chance to visit for a few seconds before we got started to realize that, that there many of us have been affected by the subject matter we're going to be talking today about in a couple of ways, and so thank you for sharing that. And I'm grateful to be here this Friday. TGIF, right?
TGIF, indeed.
Some Fridays are more TGIF than others.
I hear you on that one. I absolutely do. And I'm working right now to get this shared on my page. So there we go. Okay. So anybody that's, because I really wanted to encourage people to come and ask questions, make it be participatory. So let's see here.
Yes. Just go in and type in a question and we will get it answered as soon as we can.
Yes. So, okay.
So, Tamara, we have a couple clips here.
Yes.
And I know you wanted to talk about them before we played them.
Yes, one of which is very near and dear to many people's heart. You know it, Donna, because it really talks about what is my mission? What is it that I'm all about? Why is it that I keep showing up everywhere? Because of the fact that we can heal through connections. There is so much power in unity. There's so much power in having people come together and share the love. And there's a whole huge community of people throughout the world that have done exactly that. And we call ourselves buddies. And one of our buddies, Skip, he's on the board. He created this one particular clip, and you'll hear his voice because he talks about the fact that he himself has also dealt with what it is that we are out there sharing, that we can make a difference. So I want to talk about it after now we share this clip.
Okay, here's the clip. We'll be right back afterwards.
Life is so fragile, and we're constantly reminded just how fragile life can be, especially when we or a loved one is told we have cancer. Cancer survivor myself, I can tell you, we still feel very alone in this journey.
There's a study that's been shown that patients who are socially isolated have a worse prognosis, have a worse outcome than patients who are socially interconnected.
Buddies for Life is a non-profit cancer support group for those whose life has been impacted by cancer. Humor, hope, heart, and hugs.
Humor, hope, heart, hugs, and a whole lot of love.
Share this with your friends and family and support this community in every way you can. No one should face cancer alone.
I am a chemo buddy for life.
We are a buddies network.
No one does cancer alone.
Be a buddy.
And we are all here for you as a community of love.
We are chemo buddies for life.
And if you've heard 3 words, you have cancer, for yourself or someone else, you belong with us at Chemo Buddies for Life.
Healing through connections.
Wow.
That's powerful. That is powerful.
And it works too. That's the thing that's so powerful about it. And that's the thing that I want people to understand, is that we are actually able to, and some people know I took a little bit of time off. And so, this is really coming out again and saying, okay, now let's go after this again, guys. And the community has stayed together. I'm so proud of them. And now it's time to do it in a bigger way, to really go out there that much more, because when we join together as community, as people, as moms and dads and sisters and brothers, and those that get that call, and those that are supporting those people that have gotten the call, and when we say, you know what, if we share the humor, hope, heart, hugs, and a whole lot of love, and then we learn that we can raise our vibration and the frequency, and that there can be healing in that. We have seen that some people that have even been diagnosed with stage 4 have had no evidence of cancer going in for testing. We have seen that the quality of life has become that much better. We have seen, the banding together, that when someone's having a rough time and then someone is having some strength, and they're like, you know what, I'm not letting you stay behind here. We're doing this together. And then when that next day happens, and maybe it's vice versa, there is power and strength in that. And when someone is feeling isolated and alone, depressed and afraid, those are the things that can hamper healing. And when you have love and you have community and you have people that are there for you, those are the things that can help you to get through it.
Absolutely. And you were the co-founder of this organization, correct?
Correct. I consider myself a co-founder. I am actually, if you will, the founder, if you ask who's done the work. However, I consider myself a co-founder, and will always forever, because I had a buddy. The doctor that's in that clip was our doctor. And so in my original buddy's honor, this organization was founded on the idea that when we were going through our journey, others were affected by it in a good way. And so to say I'm the founder, no, we journeyed this for nearly 2 years together before this was ever founded. However, It was founded on the concept of 2 people that traveled their road together to healing.
Right. It just wasn't, the idea just hadn't quite formed yet.
No, I'll tell you this. When And you know this story, Donna, you've heard it a few times, but people crack up because when we would show up, people would say, "Here they come, double trouble." And then they called us the party bus too, because my buddy, she was originally from Cuba. And she came out in the Freedom Flights, and she learned English from watching I Love Lucy. So she had that personality of Lucy Ricardo. She had the comedy, and that here she comes. And then I was the straight person to her comedy, if you will.
Right.
And we would show up together, and it came to a point where our doctors and our nurses would stack the room with people that needed our energy to go through chemotherapy, that needed our energy to go through some type of treatment, because they knew that if they were around us, possibly there could be a difference in their healing journey. And because of our protocols, my healing journey took a year every 3 weeks, but hers went a year and a half. And I'm like, I'm not ringing a bell, or we're not having a luau, because that's what we did. We had a luau, of course,
right.
Couldn't do something. I'm not going to do it alone. And so a year and a half into it, every 3 weeks, we had been there quite a few times. Well, we decided to have a huge party. And what happened was a year or half a year after that. So 2 years in, I was the one that scheduled all of our appointments. So you have plenty of follow-up appointments, right?
Right.
I'm sitting there and I'm scheduling, and she's doing her thing down the hall, like she always did. Yeah, there she is, double trouble over there making some trouble. And the nurse was like, "Okay, when are you going to do something about this?" And I'm like, "Do what?" And she's like, "Other people need what you have." Right. And let me tell you how much they need it. This gets me every time because it's real. She told me the story of when we had the luau. And I was a slow drip person, so I was there all day long. So, oh my goodness, we had a luau all day long, and they Beach Boy playing, and we put coconut, bras on the chemo poles, and we did the whole 9 yards. Yeah, we did it big, right? And half a year later, my nurse is looking up at me. She's there at the schedule desk, and I've got my book out, and she's like, one person that was there at the luau, I don't know who still, one person, the only time they ever saw her smile in her whole treatment was that day.
Wow.
She was not the sickest one in the room, but a half a year later, she had just passed away. And they really felt that she needed more of those smiles. She needed more of that energy. She needed more of the coconut bras on the chemo poles. She needed more of having a buddy. And so they lobbied hard. They really did. They lobbied us hard. And in the very beginning, when we said, "Okay, yeah, we'll do it if you'll get involved with us," that's why our doctor is on film. That's why if you go to some of our archived videos now, you even see the chemo nurses, because they're all the way up the line of the clinic. We went in early before any patients were there, but they gave us permission to film because they were so adamant that people needed this. And then we didn't even know what this was at the moment. It was like, okay, what do we do with this? And that started to arrive, that answer. And that was going out to see what people needed. And when we found, and it's been evolving over the last so many years, 5 plus years now. And what it really has boiled down is 3 words. And this is really where I go with it now, because I really believe it. And that is healing through connections. Mm-hmm. And our world needs it more than those people that are facing cancer. COVID, we were there for COVID because, as you know, Donna, we were set up. Yeah. We were set up when COVID hit. We helped a lot of people through that. So,
it's funny because we're all old enough to remember. My first experience with cancer was about 5th grade, going into 6th. And that was back in the day when my grandmother had colon cancer, and she was really, really ill with it, obviously. Mm-hmm. And when word got round at school, it was whispered, Donna's grandmother has cancer. You know, the C word. Nobody talked about it back then.
No.
Nobody talked about it back then. And it is hard to go through on your own. You know, I went through cancer treatment with my ex-husband. And, you know, my grandfather had acute leukemia, and I had an uncle. I mean, we can all. Emerson, you have breast cancer in your family. Is this correct?
Yeah, my mother in her mid-20s. In her mid-20s, so this is back in the 1940s. She had breast cancer and was at that time what they gave was the double mastectomy, take out all of the lymph nodes.
Mm-hmm.
She was never able to raise her hands higher than about her head.
Right.
And one of the amazing things, what you were talking about, Donna, kind of triggered this for me. It was a time as I was growing up where, you know, if your neighbors were having trouble, the parents would whisper after the kids were in bed about it. My mother was very open. I saw the scars. I thought that was normal. I mean, it was, she was so far ahead of her time. And yet in the 1940s, a surgery like that, hey, sweetie, the you know, good news, it's not bleeding anymore. You can go home, bet your family's looking for some good home cooking. And that was the extent of it, you know.
Right.
And so I've seen that side of it too. What you're talking about, having that support, having it's more than encouragement. It's a sense that there's a tomorrow here.
Right.
There's a light here. There's a future here. I am still a person. I am still myself. All of these things
that I can be scared with somebody else.
Yeah.
And I can be wrong with someone else.
Yes.
Yes.
She was very unusual in that time period. You know, because she was so open about it, and she didn't take and it was all on her own. I mean, she didn't take it as lessening her.
Right.
And may I ask, since I don't know this story, how long did she live after that surgery?
She died at the age of 61.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. That is exactly what I was thinking you were going to say.
It eventually metastasized and into other cancer and things like that. But she died at the age of 61. And
you
my
want to
dad
know,
died at the age of 60 of lung cancer from smoking, and they died 5 weeks apart.
Well, there's a lot to be said for that and multiple different stories there. And however, you know, I want to bring something up on that. A few different things and what I'm hearing. And the one thing that she broke a pattern. She was a disruptor, as many would say. Right? Because in the 40s and with that surgery and with the attitude, because especially, why did they come out with the pink ribbon? And people get sick of it these days. But let me tell you, there was a reason for it, because they didn't say breast cancer.
Right.
You know, because it was like, oh, that could be a bad word. No, you know, it's a piece of the body. Right. I'm sorry, you know, don't go there right now. This is called, you know, an area that is at, you know, that's having a health issue. Okay, so that was one reason, the pink ribbon, you know, there was others. And thank goodness they did what they did, because of the fact I am a living example of some of the research that was done and the donations that were given over years and years and decades. I had one of the sub kind of cancers within breast cancer that was one of the highest mortality rates, one of the highest percentages. You got it, you basically kissed your life goodbye. And that was up to only like 10 years before I was diagnosed. So it was one of the later ones to get such a great result. And it was because of all the donations. It was because of these campaigns. I am alive. And so thank you to everyone that donated. Thank you to everybody that did the work. And thank you to your mother, Emerson, because you know it, disruptors like your mother, people that are willing to say, I'm not hanging it. I'm not going to push that under the rug. It is going to, you know, this is what happened. This is why it happened. And yes, there's scars. And maybe I can't do this, but I can do that. And we're going to go on with our life, because it's attitude, it's mindset, it's the things that they didn't even know. They didn't have those words. They could maybe called it gumption, or they may have said, there might have been and I will say this, during the 40s, you think about when this happened, you've got a world war that's taking place. You have a depression people have just coming out of, and you have time that is absolutely upside down, and then you have this happening. Well, you can either give up, or you can be like Winston Churchill said, never give up, never give up. And that attitude that so many showed up to life. You had the Rosie the Riveter, you had the this and the that, and people were starting to change those gender roles. They were starting to take a little bit of control back, because they had to. The reality was the world was at war, or many countries were, and their life was changing. Well, our life has been changing a lot lately too. And people can say, well, this or this or this or that. And I have a lot to say about that. And that is, okay, you look back in history, it is always changing. Change is constant.
Right.
However, the good news is this. The good news is that, number one, we shout it from the rooftops these days. We say, you know what, I'm a survivor. I'm a warrior. We are stronger together. There's no reason to be afraid of this. Do not isolate yourself. Do not go into a corner. Or if you're going to, go ahead and feel okay about it. Because you know what? Don't feel guilty if you're having some human emotion about this, right?
But I would also say, from a psychological, and I'm not a psychologist, but from a psychological and an energetic mode, don't live in that space.
Exactly. Well, that's it.
That is huge. You cannot, you can go in there and you can be mad and you can cry and you can do all the human emotions and get that crap out of your system. But it's when we live in that moment and stay there that it suffocates our system and makes the cancer or whatever else you have even worse.
You know what we call that?
Yeah, I know. When I was in a really bad place in Ohio before I got diagnosed with all the crap that was going on in my life, it made my MS that I wasn't aware of worse. Yeah. And then when I got, I didn't know I had MS. I knew I had the aneurysm before I had the MS. I know when I was 19, I was this close to having my uterus removed. Because I had precancer, and had I not gone into the doctor at that moment and had gotten it taken care of, I would have never had my babies. I would have never been able to have that in my life. But you cannot live there, and that's what is so beautiful about Chemo Buddies for Life, because it's not letting you live there. It's understanding with somebody and exploring it. And being able to release all those human emotions.
Yes, we call those days that you were. Sorry, Emerson, I'm going to come back to you just a second, but I want to say this: we call those days chocolate days. You're allowed a chocolate day every once in a while. No, I'm not saying eat the chocolates, because there's a whole nother camp that will come in and say, "Oh yeah, sugar." No, it's figurative, but. It came from when my kids were growing up, and we escaped a pretty, really, domestic violence situation, and they were going through issues. And every day, I would say every once in a while, I was like, okay, today's a pity party day, but we didn't call it a pity party day. We called it a chocolate day, right? And when kids are little, so I was like, okay, stay in the jammies, close up the curtains, get all the movies out, let's have some fun. And it's like, oh wait, one day, but next day you're making your bed, you're going back to school, we're going on with life. But
I did those too.
Yeah, every once in a while we allowed ourselves. So when I explained this to my buddy, she's like, "Oh," because she liked chocolates, but it wasn't like, we're not having chocolates. That not necessarily the wisest choice for us right now. However, we kept that name, and it stuck because that whole idea that every once in a while we can have grace, we can feel okay about it, we can cry. There's a celebration journal that that we give our people. And we, if anybody wants one, they can get a PDF. It doesn't have to be that they're going through anything. Just go to cb4l.org. It's at the bottom. It's free. Get it. You can print it out yourself. But what the Celebration Journal does is it talks about these very things and allows us to go through them, because when we're feeling guilty, we have those emotions that are like, like there's like a little bit of that, sandpaper, and we don't want to be doing that, but we are, it's like, okay, you got to deal with whatever it is you're going to deal with. That was one of the things that we worked with our doctors and nurses on as we were doing this.
And I think it's also important that anyone who's going through this understand that those in our immediate family need just as much help.
Yes.
Because we feel helpless. I know when my ex-husband had cancer, the radiation, of course, makes his taste buds screwy, right? And we were in Kansas at the time, and his dad came in to help. We only had one child at the time. And then when he was getting ready to leave, take him into a town about an hour plus away at the time for his radiation. And then my folks came in. Well, I remember, and I was running our business and doing everything I could, and I fixed Mexican food one night. Okay, no big deal. So we're all eating. And my ex-husband just snarled at me, "These beans are bad." And I'm like, "What?" And and I had gone with the doctor with him, and knew all the things that could happen. But he went on a tirade for about probably 3 minutes about I was serving rancid beans at the table.
Yeah.
And then he looked over at my folks, and they kind of have their fork like this, looking at him like, what is he talking about?
Yeah.
And then he said, "They're not bad, are they?" And they're like, he said, it's the radiation, isn't it? And we're all like, uh-huh. And so, the anger and the crap that everybody else has to go through around it, that's equally as important.
Yes. In fact, okay, so our organization and what we have done over the years is that we recognize all cancers, all stages, both the person that's affected by it, meaning the patient, and then those people that are affected by it, meaning those people that are supporting the person, loving them. It can also be the medical people. It can be, we have had so many different people, hospice people, so many that have come to us over the years that just needed a little boost in the arm, that needed a little humor, hope, heart hugs, and a lot of love. They needed to be accepted. They needed to be able to get it out. They needed whatever it is that they needed so that they could then either continue with us or go on. And, and that, because there are so many amazing nonprofits, and that's why, like this program I'm doing right now, that is supporting one of them for one of the specialized, because the thing about oncology, and anybody that hasn't been around cancer may not understand this, is that there are so many subsets of specialties, and there needs to be, because that's why we're having such success. When they used to have a generalist oncologists, which there still are, yet the protocols were pretty general also. And that's when there wasn't a lot of success for a long-term life and a long-term quality of life and quantity of life. Now that they subset them, they understand more. Science has gotten in, understanding frequency has gotten, all the different understandings, health and wellness and all the different things, because you have the traditional remedies and then you have adjunctive remedies that a lot of the traditional doctors will say, yeah, I'm totally okay with this one because it doesn't counteract that one. Some do, and you need to check. However, like you can find those oncologists that are like I was given full permission to do some really cool things where others were like, I couldn't have ever gotten that. Well, it was because of my oncologist. You were about to say something.
No, just you have done so much, and you did the impact. Oh gosh, help me out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I ran 3 years ago. 3 years ago,
Yes.
for those of you that don't know, it actually started nearly 4 years ago because this went on for almost a year, but I was in it for 9 months. Yeah, I was a latecomer to the race, is what they called it, a race against time.
Impactor.
Right, right. And it was went out to a global call for those people that believe that they can make an impact for our world, make our world a better place. And I didn't know about it. I didn't know the creators of it. I didn't know anything about this. I was off really just trying to, get some awareness. And it's not easy to start something from scratch. And that's basically where I was. And I'd started getting some recognition through the Service Hero show, which you were recognized, one of the very first on the Service Hero, Donna. And it evolved, right? But it became the bigger brand of the two. And that was exciting because then I was able to give awareness to the actual cause, that my mission, right? But you got to get out there and make a difference however you can without hurting your mission, right? So then I had someone nominated to be a service hero, and it was one of the co-founders of Impactor. And he's like, what do you do, after he had been on? And I told him, and he goes, you should be in it. And so I started at the back of the pack, and 200 and something people, and then started creeping up, and then started engaging, and started Team Tamara, and started all of this. And we started seeing some movement going into the top 50, top 25, top 5. And then, yes, in fact, there's the Impactor right there. You can see her shadow right there up on the on the bookshelf. And I ran under my name. Some did go in under their nonprofit. I ran under my name because my story is bigger than the nonprofit, because anybody that's had those 3 words usually has a bigger story than that one chapter of their life. So I ran under myself, my name. However, with the cause, the mission to get the idea of healing through connections out there, bigger through the world, and also, which we've done. I'm really proud of what we've done there. Mm-hmm. Also, something that we haven't gotten accomplished yet, and it's 3+ years after being, my name being called big at the Stan Mansion in Chicago, beautiful ceremony, Tamara Hunter, and then afterwards, it was so exciting because most of the impactors joined us and came on with our mission, because they're like, we knew you were gonna win, because who hasn't been affected by cancer, really, right. and what you're doing is really needed. So let's make this happen on a global level. So we went out there, everything. But however, one of the reasons I started this was because here in the United States and some of the other countries, there's some issues in some of the different countries also. But one of the huge issues here in the United States, it has to do with breast cancer. And so October, and the fact that, running for this Fab Over 40, and with the National Breast Cancer Foundation and all of the hoopla, pink pumpkins and all of the neat stuff that we've got going on. The thing here that people are not aware of, and I mentioned it on the stage, and it still hasn't changed, and we need it to. We need some legislation to, I'm not a political person. I'm not out there with signs, but I'm a community person. I'm a citizen of the world. I'm a citizen of the United States. And we need some laws changed, especially for those that are facing cancer, because especially breast cancer, and especially women, men too, because men can have breast cancer. Sure. However, in this case, a lot of therapists, I talked to people all over the United States when I was doing the research on this. And the issue is that many times breast cancer can be caused because of stress. And many times that stress can come from a marriage. And then when many times a woman that is going through, or man, but a woman that is going through her treatment not only does she get the paperwork with her pathology report, she may also get a double whammy, and she may get divorce papers.
Mm-hmm.
And what many women have faced is that if their divorce is final before their treatment is over, their insurance is gone. Because there is no rule in the courts throughout the 50 states to say that you cannot take that away if it's life threatening through a disease such as cancer. And it's a money thing for, they say change will take place in laws if there's money behind it. There is, because it is costing us too much money, because many of these people that are doing that with the divorce papers, you think, oh, how horrible it is. And the first people that I started talking to, I wanted to save them all. And the only thing I could do is raise awareness right now and say, 3 years later, this hasn't happened. We need to make this happen. And that is that we need to have rules and laws saying, even if it's not that you have your reconstruction, that's not life threatening. However, many of them, this has come and the person has passed. And if they had children, many times the person that awarded, said, I want the divorce, didn't want the kids either. So what happens to the kids? They become wards of the court. And so you have them going into the system. And then what do we know that happens with those kids? Many of them end up in jail. Many of them, they don't make it all the way to adulthood. And it's because their mother ended up with cancer and their father gave them divorce papers. We need to change that. And I feel as though I haven't been vocal enough. And this show is one about women leaders that are out there making a difference. And so if you know of anybody that's ever had this happen, if you are a politician and you can help to make this change, we need to have this changed, because our next generation, you talk about healing through connection. It's the connection also. Who do you know? Who do you know that can get out there and help us to save these mothers, these fathers, if it's reverse rolled, and these children? Because it becomes generational then. If there wasn't already a generational pattern,
right?
Think about that. So, am I on a soapbox on this one? Yeah, because, when I think about Impactor, because I've been gone a little bit and I've looked back on some of my material to get things fresh and regoing. And I looked at that comment and I looked at the calendar and I said, Tamara, we haven't made that happen yet. It's time to make, take charge. Fine, because who am I? I'm your sister, your brother, your mother, you're the woman next door. But that's who we need now. We need the men and women, my neighbors, those those that are listening. We need everybody to step up and say, you know what, let's do this together.
Right.
Let's do this together.
Well, that brings me to the next. You are in another competition.
Fire department for you.
Yes, I am. And as you know, Donna, and not everybody may know because not everybody knows me. However, I did take some time off. Mm-hmm. I have been running literally 7 days a week, 365 days of awesome service heroes joke. And 4 years without a break, every holiday, everything, and sometimes 3 times a day on air, and then behind the scenes. And I wasn't paying attention to some things I needed to. And so I took some time off, now back, and not 100%, but it's like, how do you get back? Well,
jump in.
Yeah. And timing and Impactor happened right when we needed it to get to a global place. This happened right when I was thinking, okay, it's time. Boom, this shows up. Okay. It's in alignment because it's raising funds. Anything like this is going to be raising funds for a nonprofit. The nonprofit of choice is the National Breast Cancer Foundation, which is in total alignment. You look at their mission and you look at cb4l.org's mission, it's like hand in glove.
Right.
And yet it's only, one area, but it's my area. I'm pink ribbon. That was my ribbon in my chapter. So yeah, running for it. And we call ourselves, it worked before. So many of Team Tamara is coming back saying, okay, yeah, Tamara, I'm coming back. Let's make this happen.
Well, I'd love to run this clip real quick and so it gives a synopsis of, what you're doing and why it's so awesome.
Thank you.
So here we go, folks.
Thank you for sharing that. And I just noticed Christopher Kaysen's here, and I want to shout out to him because I met Christopher. He's one of the top 5 from Impactor, and he's a great example. We were in different teams. We know of each other. We were on that stage. There's that picture of us holding hands, all the top 5. And then what did he do? He joined right away our cause, and he started teaching healing through art. Travel Tuesday in the chat. He did game night with Brooke, one of our she was on my team Todd for Impactor. I ran against her. She came on board. There's so many. And Christopher, he came because he is a high functioning autistic that is out there teaching that there is art, and that art and autism and that healing energy there, and so much to him, and amazing man. And so I just want to shout out, because that's an example right there of how these kind of programs bring together people that are ready to make a difference. So yeah, there's the voting. And right now, when we went live, I've been hovering number 1, number 2 in my group. Right now, came live at number 2. Guys, let's get to number 1, because the next cutoff is going to be Thursday coming up at 7 o'clock Pacific. And we are in it to go all the way.
Absolutely.
And I see Jim is here. Great. And so I did want to recognize, also flip it around to you if you don't mind, Donna, because one of the things I do with a team, because I believe in teams so much, is that whenever I do anything, it's not about me. It's really not. I might be willing to be the leader, but truthfully, when my buddy and I, my original buddy, she was really the one out there, because she was the one like Lucy and funny and everything. I was the one that did the, made sure we made it to the doctor and got our appointments and stuff. However, I was the one that kept this going. And so I believe in teams. I believe that whenever I do something, it is not about me. It's about bringing all of us and making the world a better place. And so there's so many Fab Over 40 women, men, people that know Fab Over 40 woman or man. And so I've been putting the call out there, and you did something for me. And I'd love for you to push that little button and show it and talk about it.
Hi, Donna Guinois here in Arizona, and I am all for Team Tamara in Fab Over 40. And I'll tell you what I have learned. Giving yourself grace in learning to be perfectly imperfect in your own body. That is what's Fab Over 40. Vote Team Tamara.
Nice. Very nice.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to do it. For me, it was a no-brainer. And we've talked about this. We talked about it a little bit, Emerson, right before you came on backstage. It's just me. Maybe it's just me, but I honestly believe that anything from the time we're born to the time we're about 39 is practice. We don't know who the hell we are.
Yes.
But I have learned, and it really clicked for me when I had my first brain surgery. That's when everything hit home for me like a freight train, and I was 49. And it is learning to give yourself grace. It is learning to look in the mirror and saying, as a woman, I can't be superwoman. I can't do everything under the sun. I can't work 95 hours a week and take care of my 3 kids and the whole house. Something has to give.
Yeah.
And it's learning for me, that was huge, to be perfectly imperfect.
I like that.
Right, Emerson. I mean, I think of your mother when you were talking about her story, and I would have loved to have had her send me a clip and send that out there, because really we all have those stories, right? And in her honor, I would love for you to, in the honor of my mom, she's Fab Over 40, and share why, because, and I'd love for people to start sending me these videos, because I'm really serious. And Christopher saying, still have a few years to practice for me then. We're all practicing. We're all getting there. But that perfectly imperfect, Donna, I think that, Christopher and Jim, thank you for voting today. And please, the whole reason I'm doing this is for us to be able to share, because the more we understand that we can heal through connection, and that's the heal through connection, those generational patterns, if they're there, to like the things that we've learned, like you're sharing right now, Donna, the things that we share in the chat on better health techniques, better things like this. If we can get that out there, and that's what New Beauty, the magazine that they're doing the big spread on, it's all about, not just, if you will, the surface beauty, it's the beauty from within that comes out too, the health and wellness. And that's why they've teamed with the nonprofit that they have. And the whole idea of winning this, truthfully, honestly, the reason I'm running like I am is to get the kind of awareness to that next level, like we did with Impactor. I saw the difference, and I saw the lives that are alive today because they knew about us. They came and they were part of our community. They put into practice what we were, we had experts coming in and teaching, and then they did. And now they're alive. And think about the people that we can do that, that get that message out there. And then we build the community up, because it's got to be more than me, guys, And so coming back, that's part of my commitment too, is that we build this in such a way, and to bring the sponsors, the people. And what do? You have to find out about it. And that's what this Fab Over 40 program is. And then to embrace that, we as women, we as men, because I am including men too, but I think this is primarily women. But
a lot of people don't realize that men can experience breast cancer,
right?
Apart from all the other cancers that we can experience as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Emerson. Perfect.
So important, Emerson. So important. And, I want to ask you this, and I don't want to take over the show. Yeah, you can tell I'm a show host. But, one of the things I want to point out is that you being a child, the child, having such a strong mother, going through something like that, what did that do for you?
Well, I tell you what, a few years ago, I started a life journey because I went through an experience where I asked my wife to marry me before we'd ever been on a date. And I went, how in the world did I ever think this was something that was even reasonable? And I started going back. My mother and father died in 1983, so they've been gone a long time. But I started to meet my mother, and not in an airy-fairy way, but I started to process some of the things she had to go through as a human being at that time period, and as a parent in that time period. and the decisions that she made, like as a young girl, to go to Washington, D.C. and go to the White House and get a job from a farm. Where did this come from? And I started to process some of that, and I really feel like I began to meet and understand my mother as a young woman. And it's always difficult. Our parents are here and we're here. That's how it starts out, and we move through life that way. And to begin to see her and see that amazing journey that she went through, and the cancer was a big part of it, but it was a part of it in her life. And it wasn't the definition of her life. And it was something that was profound for me when I began to realize what this young woman had gone through and processed in the amazing ways that she had embraced it, and at the same time chosen to live beyond it.
And that's the key. That's why I will say,
well said, Emerson.
Whenever I go through this, yes, exactly. And your mom, absolutely. You could just everything. I mean, we could just okay, mic drop, as they say, Angel Marie, mic drop. But when you think about it, I really encourage people to think about it as this. Lindy will say, the cancer. What I say is it was a chapter in my book of life.
Right.
Same as your mom. It sounds like, it didn't. However, I bet you anything in like you're saying, meeting her and really studying her life, I bet you the gumption of what she had to go through to live through that experience gave her the strength and the determination and the moxie and the, if I could get through that, I can get through anything. And that's the thing.
And that's in me. And I got that from her. And I only began realizing.
Only processed it later.
Yeah, many years later, long after she was gone, I began to realize it wasn't the mentors that I had or the campaigns or the companies or the positions or any of this stuff. When I would speak around the country, people like to see those. And you know what I'm saying. There's this, but it wasn't that. What it was my mother and the other powerful women, my sisters and my daughters and my mother-in-laws.
Your wife?
My wife. Yeah. And all of this, those were the things that gave me the insights and the strengths in the marketing and in the work that I do with companies and with people. And it took me most of my life to realize that's where that came from.
Right.
And it was that drive that took the young girl from a farm to the White House. It was that same drive that took her to a place where she had not one but two children after all of this. And it was that drive that led her to be somebody who you said she was, what was the word that you used?
Disruptor.
A disruptor, yes. She was a disruptor. She saw how things should be. And part of that
Thank you for your mom.
Yeah.
Because your mom and those women and those men that came before me that got out there to make a difference. And so I am alive, and that there's others that are living, because this is the message I want to really bring home. And that is, if anybody hears those three words for someone that they love or for themselves, the thing here to really embrace is that there is healing that takes place, that it is not what it used to be, and that so many are alive today. Now, is that always the story? I will not say it is. However, can it be at some point? Absolutely it can. I know it can be. And at some point in time, it will be like, okay, oh, so you had chicken pox. When did you have it? Oh, yeah, I had it here too. Someday it will be, oh, I had this and cancer, and when did you have yours? Oh, I had it. And now, okay, let's go watch a ball game. It's going to get to that point. And
we can get back to where it's that was cancer. Hey, let's go.
Yes. Exactly. And that's the message. That is the messaging. And that is the reason I'm running, guys. That is the reason I'm here. That's the reason I'm coming back, because we're not at that point yet. And there's many of us, and thank goodness I know many of us, the speakers that are out there making a difference. We need more to show up. We need us to get out there and say, it's time. It's time for the change. It's time now. We need to change these laws. We need to understand it's not so scary. We need to understand you can have community and you can heal through this. However, don't isolate yourself.
Right.
You can have a chocolate day every once in a while.
Speaking of that, you guys, we literally have 5 seconds. So we are at the end of our show. Tamara, thank you. Emerson, always a pleasure. We'll see you next week, folks.
Bye, everyone.